ambitious nobles put on old-fashioned armor and rode out to face the dragon and prove their worth. Not a single one of them returned. The kings of other lands arrived. Some brought gold and silver. Some wielded chipped blades and rode scarred war horses. Some employed magicians and soothsayers and made offerings to the saints of dragon slayers and kings. And when those kings were dead, the armies came. Led by drummers and trumpeters, black-coated soldiers rode in military formation, sabers rattling and rifles primed. In all, within 10 years of the Golden Dragon's attack, 10,000 warriors crossed the borders into the forest. They were professionals. They were aristocrats. They were the civilized and the elite, and they were men and women already living legends of their own. They were not enough. 10,000 souls went into that forest, and 10,000 souls were lost. In the end, the cleverest and the bravest were the people who fled, the ones who took what they could carry and ran and never looked back, the ones who abandoned fortune and birth and everything familiar and left the kingdom to the dragon. Of course, some stayed behind, and the dark things found them, for in the wake of the dragon, these things grew braver. Evil wrapped itself around the little village. Evil walked the crumbling streets. Evil lurked between stuccoed buildings. It looked down from the rafters with glowing eyes. It rattled its claws in the corners. It strangled the villagers in their beds. It dragged them to the depths of rivers. It snatched them up on quiet roads. It beckoned from shadowed eaves. Evil sang to them in the dark, candles burning, nights eternal. In time, the forest darkened. Its borders closed. For a long time, there was no hope. And then, from the darkness, rose a queen. Chapter 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, began Professor Damian Bielich, we live among legends.
He paused, bracing his hands on the sides of the lectern.
For we have lived through the fall of Kamienia. We have lived through the advent of the Golden Dragon, and in the midst of both these tragedies,
Damian Bielich's voice fell to a carefully crafted whisper.
We have seen, nay, we have borne witness to the last of the wolf lords.
A thrill ran through the auditorium. Shining heads bent toward one another. Throners ignored the tight collars digging into throats as they murmured their admiration for a brilliant speaker, their interest in a fascinating subject. The air rustled with low voices, and Damian Bielich waited before proceeding. In the back of the auditorium, leaning against the doorframe, Lukasz put his hands in his pockets. Outside, it was June. Outside, children were laughing, parents were scolding, and carriages were clattering. The streets were filled with fire breathers and ice cream vendors. Outside, the world was a riot of summer and sales, of bartering and bickering. Miasto was the greatest city in the world, and it was at its peak. But in here, in this moment, no one cared about the outside. Because in here, in this ageless dim, legends were being told.
For 1,000 years, the wolf lords did not leave the moving mountains,
Professor Bielich went on. He inhaled deeply, nostrils flaring, as if he could actually smell the cold shale and hot smoke of that lost world. Then he said,
until 17 years ago.
Another pause.
Until the Golden Dragon.
His listeners were on edge. Lukasz could feel it. He could also see it, betrayed in the glances cast over shoulders, in the subtle twitches of those elegant faces. It was half fear, half hope. Maybe they had even come for the same reason as Lukasz had. Not just to listen to fairy tales, not just to learn of the wolf lords, but to see for themselves whether the gossip rags were true. Whether there really was, somewhere in these hollowed halls, an apophis dragon on the loose.
For 10 centuries, Bielich was saying, the wolf lords lived in isolation and in a state of barbarism.